If representation always implies symbolization, with eating disorders, this process becomes even more crucial, as it offers the opportunity to go beyond their pathological definition, to which representation of eating disorders seems to be confined. How do discursive and aesthetic accounts of eating disorders challenge statistics, Western medical parameters, and predictable ways of instilling empathy through victimization? Despite ongoing debates around the negative influence of media on the rising numbers of eating disorders cases, most research has not gone as far as looking into the ways in which cultural representations exert this influence. And yet, when narrative media meet such a sensitive social problem, different aesthetic practices can dramatically affect different kinds of audience. Those who suffer from eating disorders and those who want to learn about it. In 2016, the writer and artist Jessie Kahnweiler directed a web series, The Skinny, to sensitize people to those eating disorders like bulimia that tend to be less represented than anorexia, since despite their exponential rise, they are less bodily conspicuous. Kahnweiler, who has been suffering for many years from bulimia, points out how films about eating disorders are not at all realistic, since they don't reveal the disgusting and shameful aspect of binging, purging, and throwing up. Her attempt to move the issue out of the clinical space and into daily life by showing eating disorders in their ordinary, mundane environment, where they become invisible, yet very present in the daily schedule of the protagonist, is a remarkable alternative to unrealistic happy-ending plots. Nonetheless, the link between visibility and eating disorders is much more entangled than what Kahnweiler brings into light in her intentionally grotesque depiction of bulimia. If Kahnweiler's provocation draws attention to shame and secrecy by overexposing bulimia symptoms, it uncovers only some of the several elements at stake when analyzing eating disorders through both an individual and a social-political lens. Eating disorders as a medical category were born and established roots in the West. There is an ongoing debate of whether the very first diagnosis of anorexia nervosa was that of Richard Morton in 1694 or of Giovanni Brugnoli in 1857. In the 90s, having established themselves as a viral phenomenon that directly correlates with well-being and economic development in the US, eating disorders traverse geographical borders and expand, especially into Japan, China, South Korea, South Africa, Argentina, Chile, and India. Data on the global presence of eating disorders can inevitably vary because of cultural parameters. A nutritional disorder can be recognizable as such in one geographical area, but not in another. And furthermore, borders between socially accepted habits, such as diet and obsessive healthy eating or religious restrictions, and aberrant ones, are becoming even more fragile.